Welcome to another video from Gradelink websites. In this tutorial, we'll go through the step-by-step process of setting up a payment feed for a form that actually collects payment. For example, if we go to the giving page, we have, and click on Give Now, we have a donation form that is set up, and a payment feed is required to be set up in order for payments to actually be processed. Now, at this stage, you should already have your payment processor integrated with your website. That is the first step. If not, please reach out to Gradelink website support to ensure that you have your payment method integrated with the website. There are several options, including PaySimple, Stripe, Authorized.net, etc. So once that is set up, the second step is to actually set up a payment feed so that each payment is processed accordingly. Now, for forms like this one where you have donation types where there's an actual subscription, you will need to set up multiple payment feeds in order to account for if someone selects a one-time, then they only get charged once. If it's recurring, then a different payment feed needs to be set up to ensure that Stripe knows. In this case, it's Stripe, but the payment processor knows that it's going to be a recurring transaction, and you will have the ability to set up when that transaction takes place if someone sets up that subscription by filling out this form. Any subscriptions will need to be manually canceled if someone requests it on the Stripe side, not on the website side. Another thing to note is that anytime you duplicate a form, for example, if there is a form like this one that already has a payment feed set up, as we can see by going to Settings, Stripe, we already have payment feeds here. If we duplicate this form, then it does not carry over the payment feeds. Now, that's a security feature, so we do need to ensure that we set up payment feeds for the duplicated form. So here's how to do that. You can go to Forms, hover over the form that you wish to set up the payment feed for, and then select the payment processor from the drop-down here. In this case, we do have three options: PaySimple, PaySimple ACH, and Stripe. As mentioned previously, Authorized.net might be another one that you integrate with, but in this case, we're going to go with Stripe since that's the chosen processor for these types of transactions. So we're going to select Stripe from this drop-down, and you can see it says you don't have any feeds configured. So one thing to note, on the form prior to setting this up, you will want to make sure that the form has a billing address field set up. It could just be a regular address field, but it's good to designate it as billing address so people give their correct billing address, as that is information is something that gets sent to the processor. You can also want to make sure that you have your specific donation type set up, since we're going to be setting up conditional logic based on the donation type. And amount is important, but you also want to have a total field on your form. So once all those things are set up, then we can go into Settings and Stripe and set up the payment feeds. We're going to go ahead and set up the first one for one-time donations in this case. So one-time donation or payment, we can call this one-time. And on the transaction type, since this one is one-time, we're always going to select products and services. Anytime it's a one-time payment, then we're going to select products and services since that's associated with that particular type of transaction. Subscription is just what it sounds like. It's for anything that will be recurring, and it will set up a subscription within the payment processor. So it automatically charges them on a monthly, quarterly, annual basis. So we're setting up the one-time payment feed, selecting products and services, and now we have to set up the settings. The payment amount, if you have a form total set up on the form already, it should pre-fill here as a default. And then we're going to need to map the corresponding fields here. So the form field is called billing street address. So we want to correspond street address to the address. Address line 2 should correspond to address 2. City to city. State to state. Zip code to zip code. And country to country. Now there may be some forms that don't exist on your form since we've hidden them. For example, we don't typically display country or address line 2 because otherwise the address field just becomes too large on the form. So, but you still want to make sure you map them either way, even though no data will transverse through that. For the email, it did automatically map it to the single email address on the form. If you have multiple email fields on the form, then you'll need to choose from the drop-down which one it should correspond to the email that gets passed on to the payment processor. And this is important so that it's on file for, especially for subscriptions. In this case, it's a one-time payment, but the email does get passed on to the payment processor. For a description, you don't have to map anything, but typically we'll put in the donation type here just so we know. And then the name will correspond to the full name of the person filling out the form. You can send other data as well using this. You could type in a key and then correspond it to this, but it's not required. So in this case, we're not going to send it. For a Stripe receipt, this would be a receipt that is sent from Stripe to the person filling out the form. It'll send to the email that they filled out. Typically we leave this off, but you can certainly send it to the email address if you wish. That would be an extra email generated automatically from Stripe. Conditional logic, this part is critical, especially since we have several different payment or donation types. We're going to check that box, process this feed if all of the following match. You also have the option for any in case, but in this case we want to use all. Donation type is, and we're going to select one time. So this feed will only process if the donation type that is selected by the person filling out the form is one time. We're going to then click Save Settings, and we're going to proceed with setting up the rest of the payment feeds for the different transaction types. So we're going to click on Stripe again, click on Add New. We'll call this one Monthly. And this time for the transaction type, we are going to select Subscription, since this is going to be a recurring monthly payment that gets set up in the payment processor based on what the person filling out the form requested. So I'm going to call the subscription name. This is something that will show up in the payment processor as well. Glenwood Capital Campaign Monthly. So we'll use that as our subscription name. The recurring amount will be the form total. And the billing cycle, we could put in 1 month. And it's going to charge on the day that they submit the form and then on the same day every day afterwards. Setup fee, we typically never use this. It is an optional thing, but you have to have a corresponding product field in the form. Trial, enabling a trial period. We don't typically use this for donations either, so we can leave that alone. But there is an application for that. We are again going to need to set up the mapping for the address fields on this form. So city, state, zip code, and country. Email is already mapped by default. We could set the donation type to map to description, coupon, and name. I'm going to leave coupon blank since we don't utilize coupon fields on the donation form. And the name is going to correspond to the full name. We don't really need any other metadata to map, so we'll leave that alone. And the conditional logic is going to be check this box, process this field if all of the following match. Donation type is monthly. And we'll click Save Settings. We'll then go ahead and set up a quarterly. subscription. And the subscription name, we will just call this Glenwood Capital Campaign Quarterly. Form total is going to be the recurring amount. And the billing cycle, we are going to put 3 months, which is a quarter. We're going to match map the billing address fields, state, zip code, country. Map the description to donation type and full name. And the conditional logic is going to state, process this feed if all of the following match. The donation type is quarterly. Last but not least, we'll set up the feed for the annual amount. So again, the transaction type is subscription. We're going to call this Glenwood Capital Campaign Annual. You can call this subscription whatever you want. Form total, billing cycle is 1 year. And street address, address line 2, city, state, zip code, country. Email already mapped, description, donation type, name, full name. Conditional logic, process this feed if the donation type is annual. And save settings. Now that we have all of our payment process or feeds set up, we can actually head over to the form and make sure that the credit card option field is showing up correctly. And we do want to make this credit card field required so that people don't skip it. Now we've got everything set up the way it should be, and your form is all set to go to process payments. You will want to make sure that you embed it on the appropriate page, and check out our video on how to embed a form on a page. Thanks so much for watching this tutorial, and please reach out to Gradelink website support with any additional questions.